cry in the blizzard. The wind screamed like a living thing. Snow danced in the air, sharp like knives. The storm was not just cold, it was angry. Jack pulled his coat tighter and pushed forward. His boots crunched on the frozen ground. Every step was heavy. Every breath burned in his chest. He had been walking alone for hours, searching for food, supplies, anything to survive. The world had changed since the war, since the sky fell and fire rained from the stars. Now the ground was ice, the towns were broken, and the nights were full of silence. Or worse. But tonight something strange happened. He heard it. A sound. Not the wind. Not an animal. Not the creak of dead trees. A cry. High, soft, weak. A child's cry. Jack stopped. He turned his head. The sound came again. He wasn't sure if it was real or in his head, but he couldn't ignore it. He moved toward the sound. Through the snow. Past frozen cars. Over a cracked road covered in white. The wind pushed against him like a wall, but he didn't stop. Then, in the distance, he saw something. A small shape. Lying in the snow. Barely moving. Jack ran. When he reached the shape, he dropped to his knees. It was a child. Not human. Its skin was pale blue. Its face small and narrow. Ears long, eyes closed. It wore strange clothes, thin and torn, and it was shaking. Jack's heart twisted. The child was freezing to death. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey, stay with me." The child didn't answer. Jack pulled off his coat and wrapped it around the child's body. He lifted the small alien in his arms. The skin was like ice. So cold. Too cold. He looked around. He needed shelter. Fast. A broken building stood nearby. The roof was half gone, but the walls were strong. It would have to do. Jack carried the child inside. He laid it gently on a pile of old blankets he had found days before. Then he lit a fire, his hands shaking as he worked. Wood. Spark. Flame. Light warmth. The child's eyes fluttered open. They were golden, beautiful, terrified. "It's okay," Jack said in a calm voice. "You're safe now." The child didn't speak. Maybe it didn't understand, maybe it couldn't. Jack opened a can of food and held it close to the fire. After it warmed, he offered it to the child. It took a bite slowly, carefully. Hours passed. The wind outside howled. Inside it was quiet. The fire crackled. The child finally slept. Jack sat beside it, tired but alert. He knew he should sleep too, but something felt wrong. Why was the child alone? Where was its family? Why was there blood in the snow? He stood and stepped outside. The storm had calmed. The snow still fell, but lighter now. Jack looked down. Footprints. Small ones. The child's. But there were others too. Bigger. Deeper. And red stains in the snow. Blood. Jack followed the trail. Step by step. Slowly. Carefully. One hand on his rifle, eyes scanning every shadow. He didn't go far before he found something else, a mark on a tree deep like claws, then more blood, a smear on a rock, drag marks in the snow. Someone had been hurt. Someone had crawled away, and suddenly, Jack knew. The child wasn't alone. Its mother, or father. Someone had tried to save it, and they were still out there, in the storm, dying. Jack's hands tightened into fists. He looked back toward the building. The child was safe for now, but this wasn't over. He would go back. He would find whoever was missing. He didn't care if they were human or alien. He had seen enough death. And tonight, he had heard a cry in the blizzard, and he had answered. The trail of frozen blood. The fire crackled softly inside the broken building. Jack checked the child, still asleep, breathing slow but steady. Wrapped in his coat, The little alien was warm now, safe for the moment. But outside, the wind whispered secrets. Jack couldn't forget what he saw. Blood in the snow, a trail, claw marks. Someone had dragged themselves away, injured, maybe dying. He looked at the child again. It hadn't been alone out there. Somebody had fought to protect it, and Jack couldn't leave them to die in the cold. He grabbed his scarf and rifle, wrapped his arms tight, and stepped into the storm again. The snow was deeper now. The sky above was thick with gray, but the trail was still there, faint but visible. Dark red smudges across white ice, footprints, drag marks, a message left in silence. Someone was still out there. Jack followed the trail, step after careful step. His boots crunched over frozen earth. His breath turned to fog. Trees stood like ghosts, bare and twisted. Then, movement. He stopped. Ahead, something shifted behind a snow-covered log. Jack raised his rifle. "Hello?" he called. Silence. He took a slow step forward, then another. And there she was, an alien woman, barely alive. Her body was curled, shielding something under her arms. Her skin was pale blue like the child's, but darker. Frost clung to her hair. Her face was bruised. One leg was twisted badly. She looked up at him. Her golden eyes were filled with fear and pain and something else. Hope? Jack lowered his rifle. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said softly. The woman flinched as he stepped closer. She tried to speak, but her voice broke. Her lips were cracked. She pointed at herself, then made a gesture, something like begging. Jack kneeled beside her. "I found your child," he said. "He's safe, with me." Her eyes widened. Tears formed instantly, froze on her lashes. She whispered one word. Jack didn't understand it, but the emotion was clear. Relief. He opened his coat and placed a heat pack near her chest. She gasped when it touched her skin. Then she passed out. Jack didn't wait. He picked her up. She was heavier than the child, but still thin, almost weightless in his arms. He turned back toward the shelter. Snow crunched louder now. The storm was waking up again. As he walked, something echoed behind him. A growl. Low, hungry. Jack stopped, turned. A shape moved through the trees. It was big. 4 legs. White fur. Eyes like fire. An ice beast. The mother must have fought one earlier. Maybe more than one. Now it had caught his scent. Jack ran. Snow flew under his boots. The woman in his arms groaned but didn't wake. He didn't stop. The beast roared behind him. Closer. Louder. He saw the shack ahead. Almost there. Something slammed into the tree behind him. Jack stumbled, but didn't fall. He kicked the door open and rushed inside. The child screamed when he entered, then saw her. "Your mother," Jack said, laying her down beside the fire. "She's here." The child crawled forward, touching her hand. A sound came from his throat, soft, broken. The woman opened her eyes. Their fingers touched. They were together again, alive. But Jack turned quickly, loading his weapon. The growl came again, closer now. They weren't safe yet. The beast was coming, and Jack had a job to do, protect them both, whatever it took. Whatever. Ice wolves in the night. The fire flickered weakly in the corner of the broken shelter. Jack sat with his rifle back against the wall, watching the door. The alien mother slept beside her child, both wrapped in blankets. Their breaths were slow. Quiet. The child had stopped crying. The mother was still weak, but alive. Outside, the wind had gone silent. Too silent. That was the problem. Jack had learned one thing in this frozen world. Storms made noise. But hunters moved in silence. He stood, slowly, and peeked through the broken window. Dark trees stood in the distance, and something moved between them. Not one, not two. 3 shapes, low to the ground. Fast, ice wolves, not real wolves, not like earth animals, but beasts built for the cold. Sharp teeth, white fur that almost glowed, eyes red like burning coals, and hunger that never ended. Jack whispered, "They found us." He closed the window quietly, checked his ammo. Not much left. He could hold them off, maybe. But the mother and child couldn't run. They were too weak, too hurt. He'd have to fight alone. The child sat up suddenly, sensing the danger. He looked at Jack, eyes wide. Jack gave him a nod. "Stay close to her, don't move." The child didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. He crawled into his mother's arms and held her tight. Jack moved to the door, slowly opened it. The cold bit into his skin. Snow swirled. The sky was black. The wolves stood just outside the trees, watching, waiting. Then, they charged. Jack raised his rifle and fired. The sound exploded in the night. The first wolf dropped. The second howled, circling. Jack stepped back inside, closed the door, and braced it with a broken pipe. Bang! The door shook. Snarls filled the air. Another bang. The pipe bent. He fired again through a crack in the wall. A scream. Blood hit snow. But more came. Always more. The door burst open. Jack fired again. One beast jumped in, teeth snapping, claws slashing. Jack grabbed a burning stick from the fire and slammed it into the beast's face. It screamed, backed off, fur smoking. The child cried out, hugging his mother. Jack stood between them and the beast, bleeding, breathing heavy. "Not tonight," he said. The beast lunged again. This time Jack swung a metal rod like a bat. It hit with a crack. The beast fell. Silent. Then, silence again. The other wolves backed away into the dark. They had lost interest. For now. Jack dropped to his knees. Blood dripped from his arm. His coat was torn, his hands shaking, but he smiled. They were safe. The mother looked at him, eyes full of something strange. Not fear, not confusion, but respect. She spoke a word. Soft, thankful. Jack didn't know the meaning, but he knew what she felt. For the first time in her life, someone had fought to protect her, not for reward, not for power, just because it was right. She reached out, touched his arm gently, and Jack knew. This was not just survival. This was the beginning of something greater. The language of mercy. The storm had passed. The sky outside was calm, painted with pale morning light. But inside the shelter, something more powerful was happening. Silence was turning into understanding. Jack sat near the fire, his arm wrapped in cloth. The alien mother was awake now. She watched him closely, not with fear, but with eyes full of questions. Her child sat between them, small fingers gripping her hand, as if afraid she might disappear again. No one spoke. Not because they didn't want to, but because they couldn't. Jack didn't know her language. She didn't know his. But still, they tried. The mother pointed at herself. She said a word. Thari. Jack nodded slowly. Thari, he repeated. Then he touched his own chest. Jack. Her golden eyes blinked. Then she gave a small nod. Names exchanged. The first step. The child giggled softly. Jack smiled. The tension in the room eased. Thari reached forward very slowly and touched the bandage on Jack's arm. Her fingers were gentle, her touch careful. She looked up at him with something close to guilt. She said something soft in her own tongue, too fast to understand. But Jack felt the meaning. She was sorry he got hurt protecting them. He shook his head, then he pointed at her son. You'd do the same, he said. She didn't understand the words, but her eyes shimmered. She understood the feeling. Jack stood and walked to the back corner. He returned with a small pouch of food, a human ration. He broke the bar into 3 parts. One for him, one for the child, one for her. Thari hesitated, then accepted. It was the first time someone outside her race had offered her food, not out of control, not out of power, but as a friend. They ate in silence. Then, Thari did something strange. She reached into a pouch on her waist and pulled out a piece of flat stone. On it, she poured a bit of black dust from another pouch. Then she dipped her finger in water and began drawing. A symbol appeared. Circle with 3 dots inside. Jack leaned closer. She pointed at the child, then herself, then Jack, the circle. Family. He took a piece of wood from the floor, dipped it into the dust and drew next to her, a symbol of fire, shelter, home. She studied it, then drew a second circle, larger, around everything they had drawn. Then, a broken line. Then a jagged shape that looked like teeth. Her hand trembled. Jack understood. Danger was outside, but inside the circle, there was safety. He nodded. Slowly. She looked at him again. Her hand moved to his heart. Not touching, just pointing. She said, something. One word. Soft. Kind. Jack didn't understand, but something in him felt warm. Thari had never seen compassion before. Her people were attacked, scattered. She had run through snow bleeding, thinking no one would care. And yet, this human, a stranger, had wrapped her child in his own coat, had fought beasts, had nearly died. Not because he had to, but because he chose to. She took his hand, held it gently, and for the first time in her life, she felt safe. The human shelter. The fire was dying. Jack looked at the smoke rising into the cracks of the ruined roof. The shelter had done its job, but it wouldn't last forever. The walls groaned in the cold. The food was nearly gone, and the ice wolves could return at any time. They had to leave. He looked at Thari. She was stronger now, still limping but awake. Her child clung to her side, tired but warm. Jack pulled out a map. It was old and torn, but one place still circled in red. An underground, human bunker, hidden deep beyond the frozen river. He had been there once before, years ago. A safe place. Thick doors, medicine, real food, heat. If they could get there, they might survive the winter. Jack pointed at the map, then at Thari and her child. He mimed walking, then drew waves, ice, then pointed at the red circle. She looked unsure. He understood. It would be dangerous, but staying would mean death. Thari looked at her son, then at Jack, and nodded. They packed what little they had, blankets, 1 rifle, half a can of food, then stepped into the white silence. The wind returned quickly. The land stretched like a desert of snow. Trees stood like broken bones. The frozen river lay ahead. A thick sheet of ice, cracked and uneven. Jack tested it with a stick. It held. They stepped onto it carefully, step by step. Slow. Every sound echoed. A crack here, a groan there. The child slipped once, but Jack caught him. They kept moving halfway across. A sound stopped them. A pop, then a crack beneath Jack's feet. He froze, looked down. The ice was breaking. "Run!" he shouted. Thari didn't understand the word, but the fear in his voice was clear. She grabbed her child and moved. Jack stayed, still, too late to move. The ice gave way beneath him. Freezing water swallowed his legs. He grabbed the edge, fingers burning from the cold. "Keep going," he gasped. Thari stopped and turned. She saw him, struggling, sinking. Without a thought, she ran back. She dropped to her knees, slid across the ice and grabbed his arm. Her hands were shaking, her face full of terror, but she didn't let go. Together, they pulled. Jack kicked, gasped, reached, and broke through. They fell back onto solid ice, coughing, shaking, but alive. Thari pulled her blanket off and wrapped it around Jack. He was freezing, teeth chattering, but his eyes met hers. "You came back," he whispered. She didn't understand the words, but her eyes said it all. She couldn't leave him. Hours later, they reached the edge of the forest near the old bunker. A metal hatch, half buried in snow. Jack opened it with frozen fingers. Rusty stairs led down. Warmth, safety. Inside, the lights flickered, machines hummed. They found blankets, cans of food, water that wasn't frozen. Thari sat beside Jack as he wrapped himself in heat packs. Her son leaned against him, already asleep. Jack looked around. They had made it. They were alive. But more than that, they were together. Not by blood, not by language, but by choice. Visitors from the sky for the first time in weeks, the cold wasn't biting. Jack leaned back against the metal wall of the old bunker. The lights buzzed softly above. A warm meal sat in his hand. Real food, not ration bars. The alien child laughed softly, chasing a glowing emergency light across the floor. His mother, Thari, smiled faintly, watching her son with tired but peaceful eyes. Jack didn't speak their language, but he didn't need to. In that quiet underground room, peace had no words. Then the ground shook just once, like a giant footstep. Jack sat up straight. The shaking came again, this time with a deep, far-off boom. He stood, rushed up the metal stairs, and opened the hatch just a crack. His breath froze. As he looked up, something was descending through the clouds, not a storm, not an earthship. It was alien. Smooth metal, glowing blue lights, silent, yet powerful. Jack's heart dropped. Thari's people. He ran back inside. Thari was already standing, child in her arms. Her face had gone pale. She had seen it too. She whispered something in her language. 3 sharp syllables. Her son trembled. Jack grabbed his rifle. No, Thari said. The words shocked him. She had spoken in his tongue. Her voice shook. No, shoot. Bad. They take. Jack frowned. Take who? She placed her hand over her child's heart. Child. Me. Realization hit Jack like ice water. This was no rescue. The ship had not come to help. It had come to retrieve them, to separate them, to punish them, to erase what they had become. The sky darkened again. Snow began to fall as the ship landed with a quiet hiss. A ramp extended. 3 tall alien figures stepped out. Their armor was black, faces covered by masks. Each held a long weapon that buzzed with blue light. They moved like shadows, calm but cold. They knew where the bunker was. They were coming. Jack stepped in front of Thari and her child, rifle raised. Thari grabbed his arm. No. If shoot, I'll die. She pointed at herself. I talk. Jack shook his head, but she stepped forward anyway. Outside the hatch, the aliens raised their weapons. Thari shouted. Her voice was strong, angry, sad. She spoke fast, pointed at Jack, then at her child, then at her own heart. The soldiers paused. Then one removed his mask, an alien male, older. His eyes were full of disbelief. He said one word. Thari answered. Jack didn't understand, but it didn't matter. Suddenly, the older alien raised his hand, a signal. The others lowered their weapons. Thari turned to Jack. She walked back to him, took his hand, and pulled him forward, beside her. The alien leader looked at the human and the alien woman standing together. The child between them. One family. He said something cold. Thari didn't look away. She responded with fire in her voice. A long silence followed. Then, the leader stepped back. He turned, spoke one command. The soldiers left. The ship rose into the sky, disappearing into the clouds. Just like that, they were gone. Back inside the bunker, Jack collapsed into a chair. What did you say to them? He asked. Thari looked at him. She placed a hand on his chest, then on her own. Same heart, she whispered. She looked at her child, then back at Jack. Same family. She cried, watching him leave. But then something changed. The sky was clear now. The storm was gone. The snow had stopped, and for once, the sun shone over the ice, lighting the frozen world in soft gold. Jack stood outside the bunker, bag packed, rifle slung over his back. His breath fogged the air. He didn't turn around. Not yet. Inside the bunker, Thari stood in the doorway, silent. Her child clutched her leg. Jack had made his decision. He had brought them to safety. Protected them. Fed them. Fought for them. But now it was time to go. This wasn't his place. They had a future, and he didn't belong in it. Jack took a step forward, then another. Behind him he heard a small sound, a soft sob. He froze, turned. Thari was crying, not loudly, not like fear, but like someone who had waited a lifetime and was losing something she only just found. Her golden eyes were full of tears. "Why?" she asked. Jack blinked. "You speak English?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "Learned. Listen you. Every word." Jack lowered his bag. "I thought you'd be better off one without me." Thari stepped forward, her voice shook. "No," she pointed at her son. "He lives because you stayed." She placed her hand over her heart. "I live because you stayed." Jack didn't know what to say. He had fought for many things before. Orders, duty, survival, but never for a family. And that's what this felt like now. Not strangers, not alien, but family. Thari took one step closer, tears still on her cheeks. She reached out, held his hand. "Stay," she whispered. "Not for Storm, not for danger, for us." The child ran to him, small arms wrapping around his leg. Jack looked at the boy, then at Thari, then at the empty road ahead. His future. And for the first time, he didn't want to walk it alone. He dropped his bag, wrapped his arms around both of them, and for a long moment, there were no humans, no aliens, no ice, no war, only warmth, only a family. Epilogue. The bunker became their home. Jack fixed the lights. Thari taught her child both languages. The child called him Da. Together they planted small crops near the warm vents, cooked real food, built a table, a home. One day, more survivors, alien and human, followed the same trail and found not just safety, but a place where kindness had melted the coldest storm.